We think we are helpless. We are not. We hold some of the aces. In fact, we hold some of the most important aspects needed for this world to survive. We are endowed with natural resources. The African continent is rich, by far the richest continent on the face of the earth. And we are a poor continent? No, we cannot be. And we have natural resources in staggering abundance and variety. How can we be poor? And how can we go out to the world as beggars, as weaklings, asking them to give us a seat at the table at the United Nations? No, we must break into that organization and claim our seat at the head of the table. I make these remarks forcefully and evocatively because they must represent the new thinking, the new chimurenga across the breadth and dimensions of the African continent. And so, we are here to continue to mark the steps, to chart a course, to script a new and refreshingly different, defiant, powerful narrative for Africa.
This is Duma Boko, President of Botswana, a leader stepping into a defining moment, not just for his nation, but for the continent. Standing before a room of power and policy, alongside Emmerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, he speaks at the 5th session of the Zimbabwe-Botswana Bi-National Commission. But this is more than a diplomatic gathering. It is a stage where truth meets urgency. His posture is calm, but his message carries weight, the kind that doesn't whisper, it confronts. The kind that reminds Africa of what it has lost, and what it must fight to reclaim. Because this is not just a speech. It is a call to leadership, to responsibility, and to the future of a continent that can no longer afford silence.
I would like to start on a light and cheerful note. In Shakespeare's King Henry IV, two characters are in conversation with each other. The one says to the other, you know, I can do things. I can call spirits from the vast deep. The other one answers and says, well, so can I, and so can anybody else. But will they come when you do call for them? Very brutal question, very devastatingly honest. We can gather here and claim to be capable of summoning spirits of execution, development, progress from the vast deep. The real question that confronts us is, will these spirits come when we do call for them? How do we make them come? And as I was walking here, I heard a lot of noise. Machines grinding. Said to me, things are happening in Zimbabwe. Work is going on. Construction is happening. Brick by interlocking brick. Progress is being crafted, shaped. And I'm happy when that happens. So let me thank you, Your Excellency, for the warm welcome, the hospitality that you and the people of Zimbabwe have extended to us and always do when we come to your country. I thank the people of Zimbabwe as well because the roads are busy here. People are hustling, faced with everyday realities. And when you have to clear the roads, you are actually disrupting the flow of their lives. And when they oblige, you must be grateful. And so I express my gratitude through you, Mr. President, to the people of Zimbabwe for the grace and forbearance with which they receive and treat us when we come to Zimbabwe. It is always a pleasure and a profound joy to be in Zimbabwe, a country with which we share very close relations, we interact, we connect at many levels. You and I, coming from the legal profession, understand the utility of the judgments that are rendered by the Supreme Court of Zimbabwe, courts in Botswana, and the interconnection of the jurisprudence that emerges. Remember one case from here, case of Zimnat Insurance Company versus Chawanda, where a Zimbabwean judge says in that judgment, quoting Lord Atkin, dealing with rigidities of practice and thought, the judge says, where the ghosts of the past stand in the path of justice, clanking their medieval chains, the best course is to go through them undeterred. Very profound observation by a judge in Zimbabwe. And I've stood in the courts in my own country and I've cited these seminal words, and I've acknowledged their provenance and the evocative manner in which they were stated in that Zimbabwean case. I'm demonstrating to you the connectedness. We are not faking it. It's real. We live it. And so I congratulate Zimbabwe very warmly, because you celebrated your independence anniversary on the 18th of April. We appreciate that historic moment when Zimbabwe attained independence. It was epic, not just for Zimbabwe, but for Botswana. We had suffered as well alongside you. We had borne the full brunt of the brutality that was meted out. We housed, we accommodated, we fed, we clad, we supported, and we took casualties as well. We were ambushed by the Smith regime. They had a very notorious unit called the Sellers Scouts. We know them very well. We understand the enormity of the gratuitous brutality that they visited upon the people of Zimbabwe, and which spilled across the border into Botswana as well. And so when we express our support, our appreciation of your independence, we know what we are talking about. We felt the pain with you. So our being here today is a historic milestone. As always, it is and will continue to be. It is a powerful testament to the resilience, the unity, and determination of the people of this country in their pursuit of freedom, sovereignty, and national development. You've faced challenges. You've had to weather storms. You've had to take fire and ire from outside of your borders. But you've stood firm. You've stood strong. You remain undeterred. And we appreciate the depth of your resilience. As we formally open this session of the Bi-National Commission, I cannot but reaffirm these deep-rooted bonds of friendship, solidarity, and shared history that unite our two nations. These ties continue to provide a firm foundation upon which we advance our common aspirations for prosperity, stability, and sustainable development. The Bi-National Commission remains an indispensable institutional mechanism for steering our bilateral relations. It enables us not only to review progress across sectors, but also to identify emerging opportunities for collaboration, as well as to provide strategic direction to ensure our partnership remains dynamic, responsive, and mutually beneficial. This occasion affords us a unique opportunity to examine things and our circumstances with a fresher and freer play of mind, to identify zones of possible intersection, to deepen our collaboration across these zones, to achieve an objective complementarity between our economies, and ensure that we do not engage in adversarial competition. We engage in plausible complementarity. We support Zimbabwe where Zimbabwe is unrivaled in whatever sector. And Zimbabwe supports Botswana in turn in whatever area Botswana excels. It is important for us to appreciate these basics, these fundamentals. And it is a careful identification and delineation of these areas of overlap that will enable us to power our economies and grow them. And I'm aware that the Zimbabwean economy has experienced phenomenal growth in the year 2025, averaging about 6.6%. That's laudable. But it is only the beginning. We must strive for more, for better, for higher. We must collaborate in health, in agriculture, in trade and investment, in transport and infrastructure, in energy, in tourism management. We must also cooperate and collaborate in defense and security. We experience in Botswana now a rising and devastating scourge of synthetic drugs, habit forming, altering the consciousness of young people, destroying lives and livelihoods. It poses risks at several levels. First, destroys young people, saps their strength and their verve and youthful vitality. It destroys the future. But it also poses another risk of a political nature. These drug dealers and drug cartels become too powerful. They then take over whole countries and economies and they dominate. They corrupt institutions and take them over. They subvert all the laws and processes. And before you know it, there is instability. There's civil strife and chaos. There's a collapse of order. And so we need to stand firm and be vigilant. We need to see our security organs collaborate seriously to deal with these cross-border situations. We must also harmonize our policies, because some of these practices fall through the cracks because of an incongruity in the different policies of our countries. We must harmonize our regulatory environment, our laws, the better to deal with these common challenges and threats as one united front. And we must appreciate these increasingly complex and troubled regional dynamics. We live in a fluid, very dangerous world now. World of uncertainty. World of might being right where the international legal order is being subverted every day and disorder is normalized and given the imprimatur of authority. We face these challenges. And sometimes as African countries, we think we are helpless. We are not. We hold some of the aces. In fact, we hold some of the most important aspects needed for this world to survive. We are endowed with natural resources. The African continent is rich, by far the richest continent on the face of the earth. It has young people. The median age, the average population is 19 years, 3 months on the African continent. A continent of 1.4 billion people, over 60% of them being young people, full of youthful energy, marauding, bristling with purpose. And we are a poor continent? No, we cannot be. And we have natural resources in staggering abundance and variety. How can we be poor? And how can we go out to the world as beggars, as weaklings, asking them to give us a seat at the table at the United Nations? No, we must break into that organization and claim our seat at the head of the table. I make these remarks forcefully and evocatively because they must represent the new thinking, the new Chimurenga across the breadth and dimensions of the African continent. And so, we are here to continue to mark the steps, to chart a course, to script a new and refreshingly different, defiant, powerful narrative for Africa. And we meet here in the charmed city of Harare to reaffirm our commitment to these values, to these principles, to these fundamental precepts that must guide our every action. We have our private sector. We must mobilize the private sector so that it deploys capital. Sometimes it becomes an ideological question. Capital is dangerous if left to its own devices. Capital for its own sake can be extremely dangerous. Capital must be harnessed, mobilized, and deployed in the service of the real economy, in the service of development and inclusive growth. That's what capital must serve. And we need to understand this. And so we need to mobilize private capital and deploy it appropriately so that it does not run amok and become predatory and disruptive. It's ideological when you craft it that way. And I craft it that way unapologetically. And that is why when we face the challenge of sanctions, we realize that it is capital being mobilized dangerously to thwart and frustrate economies because certain countries want to call the shots and dictate what happens within the borders of a sovereign state. We must reject these impositions because we are capable of charting our own course. And we must chart that course. We must claim our place in the constellation. In this wide firmament, Africa has a place. In fact, it has a central place. And so we are here today to reassert that